What is up to all the difference makers out there? I have been on pins and needles for this episode for quite some time. The gentleman I have in the studio today had a post on Facebook. It's probably been a couple months ago now. And he had this, there's like 5 or 6 things about him. And every single one of them, as I'm reading down the bullet points, I'm like, oh my God. And I was like, I got to have this guy on. And then he hit me with this story of the good, the bad, and the ugly. And it was a little teaser on this post. And so I've been on pins and needles. We were supposed to meet up last week and I got strep throat. And I'm like, I hope he can reschedule really, really quickly. So we're back in the studio a week later. And I'm excited. Let's get into this because we're both going to be going on a journey together of hearing the story and then hearing the story of how and why he does what he does now, how he got passionate. We were just talking a minute ago about how we kind of land in what we were meant to do. And yeah, anyways, so let's jump into it. JJ Zielinski, welcome to Coffee and Grit.
Yes. And Jason, thank you for having me. I really appreciate you having me right now and being here.
Absolutely. It's the first podcast, huh?
Yeah, first podcast. Yeah, so it's very exciting. I will say I love your facility. It's great. I've been meaning to actually check it out and actually stop by here. But again, thank you for having me.
It is my pleasure. And like I said, I started working with the Speakeasy studio here back in end of May, and it has just been phenomenal. And I've said this in a few episodes, I love, and I'm talking to you, helping people share their story, get out there and like entrepreneurs be able to highlight themselves, but then to be able to bring them into this space and have the equipment and just this whole thing is just, it's phenomenal.
It really is. And I will say what you have here is definitely special. Just even walking in, this is incredible.
Yeah.
This facility.
The episode before this episode is with Rob Johnson, the owner and creator of the studio here. And it's just really cool. Cause I told him like walking in here, everybody is amazing. Like you walk into the door, you get greeted, like you can tell everybody just enjoys being here. And that's a huge nod to the culture and what he's building. So
Absolutely.
So JJ, we're going to talk about so much.
Yes.
There's like so many things. There were so many things in that post. And like I said, but I've been on pins and needles. So we're going to just jump into this story, man. Cause this JJ isn't even really your name, right?
So I will give this little teaser. My original name is John. Last name, I kind of need to keep it confidential for right now.
Yeah.
Things are still a little bit iffy. Once you hear more of my story, you'll understand why. But yes, my new name is JJ Zielinski. And actually before this, when I kind of lost myself and lost my identity for a while, I went as John Noon.
Yeah. And I saw that in like Noon, but it like still come out like no one.
And
right?
I purposely did it no one. Yeah, so Noon.
Yeah.
But briefly till I could actually figure out a new identity, a new name, and just what to do with my life.
So what kind of unfolded? What's kind of that situation, that story of the good, the bad, and the ugly?
Oh,
and I know there's some pieces that you have to keep close, but
yes. Where do I begin? So, well, the reason why I call it The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is not only like a hats off to Clint Eastwood's The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which is one of my favorite movies of all time, but personally, just throughout life, I've have this philosophy that there's 3 types of people in this world: good, bad, and ugly. And you're probably wondering, well, I could understand like good and bad, like, good versus evil, or just like people that have like good intentions versus bad intentions, but where does the ugly come in? So from what I've experienced, there's good people that honestly want to do the right thing. There's bad people that make bad choices and do things that aren't necessarily the most honorable, not necessarily the best thing for society. So the ugly kind of describes people that are just super selfish, that have no care in the world for other people, no respect, no remorse, just pure self-serving, if that makes sense.
It makes total sense. So it's like there are people that can be perceived as bad, but I think that there's a lot of people they don't see themselves as bad. They're doing things in order to survive or doing things based on their perspective or their experiences. So those are like the bad. They may have ill intentions. They don't mean to purposely hurt people. And if they knew they were hurting people, they'd probably feel bad about it.
Correct. And on top of it too, sometimes people just make bad decisions. sometimes people just in the heat of the moment too. I mean, I use this example. I mean, two people get into a fight and sometimes you say like really mean things. And then the next day you realize like, what did I do? Like, I didn't mean to say those things. It was just like the heat of the moment. So like what you did was like per se bad, but at the same time too, like, did you truly mean it? Or were you just like so in the heated moment with someone that you like said something hurtful and like you regret it? Well, then there's people that I consider the ugly that do mean things and they don't care. They have no remorse. And even if they hurt you in some way, oh, well, they just don't care.
Just don't care. Yep. So I'm taking it you've had an experience with each one of these types of people.
Yes, exactly. So that's where my story kind of comes in. Again, it's also like a little hats off to Clint Eastwood's The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. I really love that film. And I saw a lot of symbolism and cultural semiotics. I mean, just watching the film in parallel with just my own circumstances. To tell you, like fill you in a little bit about the characters of The Good, the Bad, the Ugly. I mean, 3 people, 3 different personalities, 3 different, just like mindsets of how this story intertwines all 3 of their lives. The good is a young kid, an apprentice that just was more oblivious, just wanted to do what was right. And even though it's a complicated situation and there's a lot of gray areas that made it a lot more difficult. The bad is a doctor who was addicted to narcotics that made some bad decisions. And even though there are some parts of him that are just, he is still a person. He still has some kindness to him, just made a lot of bad choices. And then there's the ugly, who is a woman who had no remorse till this day, just is super selfish, doesn't mind harming people.
Yeah.
And is just something else altogether.
So that sounds like a pretty crazy, like a bad mix when you get this good, kind of like this bad that's like not uncontrollable.
Yes, exactly.
And then evil.
Yeah. Basically just, evil if you want to sum it up.
Yeah. So how did that impact you?
So to tell a little bit more about the story and just like how it impacted me. So I was what you would deem the good. I was a young apprentice at one time to the bad and the ugly. So they were 2 partners that worked together at a medical clinic. He was a doctor, which I noticed he had a quirky personality, was a little bit different, but at the same time too, my philosophy as well is there's no such thing as normal in this world. There's different degrees of just like kind of quirkiness.
Yeah.
And like, where do you fall on the spectrum in comparison to like everyone else? So
what's normal, right?
Yes. What is normal? Exactly. That's a huge debate. Yeah. So, just shadowing both of them and just getting to know each one of these characters and working alongside them, I just noticed some interesting things, especially with him. I noticed he would get into either like rage fits at times, which being a doctor, I don't want to stereotype doctors, but doctors have an attitude at times.
Yeah.
So I didn't quite think anything of it. And then this woman who was his partner, I noticed she was always kind of shady ever since the first day I met her, just always up to something. And I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but I always had kind of a bad vibe and they were always probing for information, but it was like random information where it's like, I could see that there's wheels turning in your head and I'm trying to think, why are you asking these questions? But just things around the office seemed a little off with this person.
Mm-hmm.
So as the story kind of progresses, getting to know this doctor and just seeing some weird things behind the scenes, one day I actually got a phone call because I actually came into work and like no one was at the office. I'm just like, where is everyone? It's just like, well, the doctor actually tried to kill himself. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I know he's got like a family. I know he's got kids, like what happened? Like he seems like a good guy overall. Like he seems like he's got his life together. Like he seems to have like things pretty good. So, once we came back to work, I wanted to ask him why, but at the same time, I wanted to respect his privacy, but it just was in the back of my head, just like, why would you do something like this? Like you have a family that loves you. Mm-hmm. You've got kids that absolutely adore you. You seem to have like things pretty good. So turns out, he was addicted to narcotics, which explains his mood swings. And I know that in the medical field, it's very popular these days. Actually, it's very common where you hear these sad stories about doctors or nurses or nurse practitioners being addicted to narcotics just because of the field that they're in and having access to it. But things started to get a little bit even more out of hand where then I actually got a phone call from actually Lansing and actually from the authorities and some police officers about, do you know about any suspicious activity going on at the office? We speculate that not only is there just a problem with narcotics disappearing, but there's problems with the patients. There's potential racketeering. There's other things going on that, we think are definitely illegal and we highly suspect. And do you know anything about it? And of course, I'm just an oblivious kid. I'm just a part of this, just being the assistant and just shadowing. So a
little bit of time ago before that, you just thought this guy just had some moon swings here and there, but overall he had his life together.
Yes. So a few years pass. And literally as I'm working here, I'm thinking about this in the back of my head. Is this some sort of mistake? This can't be happening. He seems like a good guy overall. And I know that he had his problems. He seemed to get his life together. I know he did go to rehab and he seemed to be back on track. And I'm just thinking to myself, maybe this is some mistake, some misunderstanding. I don't think this gentleman would do this. But at the same time too, now I'm questioning, is this actually real? Should I get a new job? Should I start looking elsewhere? And I was actually looking for a new job at one point because I'm just I'm starting to get a little uncomfortable here. And I don't know what to believe. I don't know. And then talking to the partner, I noticed their stories were always a little bit different when I did kind of touch on the subject, just because I'm just hey, I got this phone call. I don't think that this is a made up situation, because I don't know, police officers would just call me just. Yeah, just making this up. But the weird thing is they kept on changing their story a little bit, the partner. So again, I didn't know what to believe coming from them. But then I think to myself, well, is it true? Is maybe they're, do they know something I don't know? I couldn't tell anymore. And then one day I will say, after a few years passed, there was a raid of the office. Yep. So, Lansing authorities came in, raided the whole office, took computers, took documents. And it's then at that moment I realized, okay, this is real. I was so hesitant before because just I don't know what to believe, what's false, what's real. I just wanted to have a job at the time and I just wanted to shadow and just learn what I could.
Yeah.
But, turns out, hey, all this is real. Yep. And it's going down right now.
That's so, because you talk about being, you're a kid, you have this different perspective of good, right? You have the lenses on where it's you don't see things in a shady way. Yes. And then all these things kind of just happen.
Yes, exactly. So, this was just a lot to just take in. Obviously I got out of there because I'm just I don't know what's going on, but obviously there seems to be some investigation going on and I just can't be a part of this. And I left, but the story still continues. So, I was
gonna say, I know it doesn't just end there because
no, it definitely continues because now there's the law aspect, because now comes out there is plenty of evidence, there is malpractice going on. Now it's going to be a court case where, because you were working there, whether, you're innocent or not, you're part of this equation, and we needed you to testify, we need you to come in, we need you to talk about everything that, you actually witnessed, that you actually saw. So then my life became entangled with theirs. And you could imagine it became a complicated case that lasted for several years. And with the law and with a court case, it's not just cut and dry like an episode of Law and Order SVU.
Yeah. It's not wrapped up by the end of the episode.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just it takes place over a week and that's it. No, this actually took place another few years. And just dealing with having to miss out work just to deal with court cases. It impacted me where it got to the point where, I had to change my name, and I'll get into that in a little bit as well. But yeah, it really, am I allowed to curse?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, it really fucked up my life. I will say that it definitely fucked up my life. It made things a lot more complicated. And then on top of it, the doctor before, he was eventually incarcerated, he was free and he went back on narcotics. Somehow he got a hold of them, even though he lost his license. And then started actually stalking me. I noticed that my mail would disappear. So someone was actually taking my mail, and turns out it was him. Yeah, because he wanted to make contact with me. And then actually we got into a few arguments actually at my home. There was a threat that he gave to me a few times, and it just, it got bad.
Wow. Okay. So how do you move on from this, or how, I know you're still kind of dealing with it a little bit, but yes. How do you start to separate that?
Well, the first thing is finding a new place to live and just kind of hang out quietly. And I will say for the past several years, and the reason why I haven't really brought up this story is I've been dealing with the pressure of just like the aftermath of what happened. And I will say I kept my head down for like a long period of time just till this all blew over. But it did affect me like at my new job. It did affect me. I mean, even my mail, it affected me just being at my current residence. So their situation became mine. And whether I liked it or not, I'm now, involved in this court case, which I mean, it was horrible.
How old are you when this all started?
So I was in my early 20s.
Yeah.
When it happened.
It's like just one of those things. You get just entangled. It's not something you asked for.
Yes. And it was really bad, I will say. And I was a wreck for a while. I didn't know what to believe. And also this person, this gentleman, this doctor, I looked up to him too. And I will say, I thought he would be a good mentor. I knew that he had some issues and he was like rough around the edges at times, but at the same time too, he really knew his stuff. He was very smart and capable at what he was doing, but then just knowing the truth, it's just like, ouch, that hurts. I mean, that really hurts.
So what does that do? What did that do for your trust with people and like kind of moving in and finding other leaders and mentors, other jobs?
I will say it's become very complicated. This next part makes it even a little bit more like, how do I say this? So something that's also made this very complicated is I'm related to both the bad and the ugly.
Oh.
Yes. And me and the bad actually shared the same name. And that person. Yes. And that's one reason why I changed my name is I realized, wow, you destroyed our name.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And it gets even more complicated, which is, the ugly, who I'm also related to, I brought up, do you know anything about this? And for a long period of time, they played the victim card and I believed them. I did believe them hardcore that, they weren't involved with this.
Yeah.
But then as time progressed and as years went on, there's some things that kind of like came to light and I realized you're a part of this. Like, in fact, actually, eventually it came out and they didn't officially say this, but I confronted them. I'm like, did you start this? And they gave me a look and a smile and I realized you started all this. So even though they were doing things, you were helping out and actually you were doing the worst things. And you played the victim card and also they realized, well, there's only an opportunity in this law case to save one of us and I'm going to save myself. And even though it's going to destroy my family and all that, I don't care. And yes, and I'm unfortunately related to this person.
Wow.
Yes. Well, actually, both of them.
Yeah. So again, just even more complicated. It's not just a mentor, not just a boss. These are relatives.
Yes. So then, to answer your question, my trust factor even now has been like a little bit out the window. This person too that I call the ugly, this woman. There's a lot more complicated history with them as well, even going on right now. They're very well known to be very vindictive. They've actually been diagnosed. They are a narcissist with sociopathic tendencies, and I've noticed that they've always
I was wondering that when we first started talking about the description of the ugly.
Yes. So they've been diagnosed, and somehow I don't know how the law is cut up to them, even though I've gotten plenty of phone calls. I know that I'm not the only victim of theirs, but they victimize other people. I know that they seek revenge. If you piss them off, they'll actually do something and they have no remorse to do it.
Mm-hmm. And it sounds like holds a grudge for a really long time. It doesn't just settle over.
Yes, they love to hold a grudge.
So how do you start moving on? How did you start rebuilding your life? I know we talked about your wife coming in and being a big part of everything. Like, what does that look like?
So my wife saw the tail end of this whole situation. So before I actually changed my name, I had the long conversation, what do I do? Because we share the name and it's not like a common name like Smith where it's just like, well, like there's so many Smiths where we could bury this under the hatchet.
Yeah.
It's just like, I definitely have to change my name and just separate myself and become just a whole different being than I was originally planning. So that became complicated. And again, that's why for a short while I became John Noon, just no one, because to myself, I was no one. I lost my identity partially. I didn't know what to do with my life. I had to basically start over again in certain ways. And the trust factor just went out the window. And it's just like, who do I trust anymore? I don't know. So when it comes to rebuilding my life too, I spent actually a lot of my childhood out here in Brighton. Uh-huh. So I've actually seen 34 years of evolution of downtown here.
That was amazing.
Yes. And I actually had relatives on the same lake that I live, and I actually have my studio out. It's actually right on Briggs Lake.
I love how your business name is Lakehouse Studio. That ties into it.
Yeah, thank you. In fact, actually, that's why I came up with the name. Is I built a little log cabin, like barn right by the water. And when I was thinking of a name, I'm just like, it's like a little lake house. Wait a minute. That's what I'm going to call us. Lakehouse Studios.
So cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
What a motivating place. I haven't seen it, but this sounds like a really motivating place to work at.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And you'll have to check us out sometime. We'd love to have you.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to the like rebuilding, then for like a long period of time, I had to basically keep my head down and stay under the radar just because he was free for a while and he got hopped up on narcotics and was out of control. And I mean, the woman I couldn't trust anymore to save my life. So it's just like, who do I trust? I mean, I basically just have to keep my head down. And then it's just like, do I trust anyone? I mean, I don't know who to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because those are family members. Those are,
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, my wife, she's a sweetheart. I knew that I could trust her, and she just helped me through all of this to just rebuild. It did also inspire me that, hey, even though I had to go through these fucked up things, I shouldn't let it interfere with my passions and my dreams. And my childhood dream was to always have Lakehouse. So ever since I was a kid, I could pick up a crayon and pen, like, this is all I want to do. I was the art kid that was doodling in class and wanting to create things. And I just knew, like, I want to do this. I want to run my own business one day. And regardless of these fucked up circumstances, you know what? I'm going to do it.
Man.
Yeah.
It's eating faces. It's literally no matter what is happening in the world, no matter what circumstances you are, it's like going and living your dream.
Yes.
Going and making it happen.
Exactly. And I recommend that to anyone. You know what? No matter what the obstacles are, you could overcome them. You'll still have your challenges along the way because life's not perfect and it's not like the board game life. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what?
It's not like you had this challenge and all of a sudden now you got over this and it's all smooth sailing.
Right, exactly. And I'm still going through it right now. So the gentleman, the doctor who I deemed the bad, he actually passed away a little bit over a year ago. Okay. And one thing that helped me get over it is actually they let him out. He was supposed to be actually incarcerated for life, and they said he actually has a terminal illness. And one of his requests, because he's going to be released, we don't want to be responsible for what's going to happen to him in the near future, which is a very rare gift to give any prisoner. But he wants to talk to you and he wants to make peace before he dies. So I found a lot of closure in that, which is, wow, I actually have the opportunity to see someone I haven't seen in quite a long time and actually figure out what exactly happened. You know, how did things just get so crazy? Like, what is it that made you do the things that you did? And then can I find closure? Can you find closure? And at the end, we actually did find closure. So that really helped me to just get over this hurdle, make me find like some sort of peace with the situation. But I still have to battle the woman all the time, and she loves to stalk. And just to tell you a little bit more about her, I mean, other than just being a narcissist with sociopathic tendencies, she has a long history of stealing, blackmailing, threatening. I mean, basically doing everything under the sun. In fact, actually got a phone call from a few police officers about some suspicious activity that like got stolen. That happens to be like towards our Franklin office. I mean, they were asking the whole neighborhood, and deep down, I may not be able to prove it, but I know it's them. I can't prove it, but deep down, I just know it's them. Yeah.
So crazy.
I know.
So you, literally that sit down, you were able to sit down and he came clean and you guys had.
Yes. Yeah. It spanned like a few days. Like I actually went over and actually saw him. And I will say the first time reconnecting with someone that you haven't seen in a while, definitely intense.
Yeah.
But at the same time too, we both realized the same thing, and he brought it up, which is, you know what, I'm dying of a terminal illness. We both know I wasn't supposed to be here, but for some twisted or for some twisted fate, I mean, here we are, like, we might as well make the best of it. You know, regardless of what happened, let's just try and find peace and closure. And we did.
You know, we talked about describing the good, the bad, the ugly, and you look at that bad, he made bad decisions, right?
Yes.
But at the end of the day, he had remorse.
He did have remorse. So, and in some ways I respect that, because it's just like, well, you at least had remorse. The other person till this day doesn't have any remorse.
She'll die without it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And she already lives a very lonely, sad life. And I mean, I deal with them quite frequently. And the last time I saw him, which is actually a little bit over a week ago, I brought up, just an argument with them, which is, you know what? It's very sad that you're all alone, that this is the life that you chose for yourself. You could have had a better life. You could have had, you know, like a family. You could have had friends, but literally you just sit at home now and you're just lonely and you have nothing else to do but to just torture people.
Yeah.
That's your amusement. And that's literally all you live for now. And when you die, which I did have this conversation, no one's coming to your funeral. Literally no one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's, man. And then you get a choice, right? Because no matter, though, you got entangled into this.
Yes.
And you can live that life without trusting, or you can create your own legacy, right? You can go out and live and create your own life and do the things you want to do.
Exactly. So, and that's what I'm doing now is, you know what? I'm living my life to the fullest, whatever that is. I'm just trying to be happy. I'm trying to grow my business, spend time with my wife, spend time with my family and friends that actually do matter, and try and get over the events that happened just like, I want to say a little bit over 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me more about your business, and kind of, you know, we talked about before we got on air, just that journey in creating, like turning something that is a passion into a business.
Yes, absolutely. So as I've stated before, ever since I was a kid, could pick up a crayon, I was that that art kid in the back of the classroom. So I knew then that this is what I wanted to do with life, and I made it my passion to try and fulfill it as much as possible. So I went to CCS, got my bachelor's in design. Then I also got an MBA from South University because I wanted to learn like the business side.
Okay.
And then after working at like a bunch of different advertisement agencies, including working on like the Super Bowl, doing like their advertisement, working with like a bunch of corporate customers, I got to the point where I had enough experience. I knew, okay, it's time for me to start my business. So in 2010, that's when I officially started Lakehouse.
Okay.
It was just me and my barn.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, again, very small business, just trying to make a name for myself. But I did actually build a rapport with a lot of corporate customers that were coming and actually seeing what I was doing. And they knew, you know, since we had such a good rapport, like, hey, we could continue like the business that we've been doing for years. You know how I work, like I know how you work. We've got this good symbiosis. So let's see where this goes. And as time progressed, awesome. I started adding on like different types of medium. So originally I thought I was just going to be doing like graphic design and advertisement, but then it built into like videos and websites and social media and printed promotional materials. So it definitely expanded. And now we have 2 locations. So we're here in Brighton and we're also in Franklin, Michigan.
Okay.
And we keep on going up on the chart. So, hey, that's always a good thing.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so amazing. I love, especially like you think about art in how so many people have that passion around it, but then they don't think they can turn it into a career, a business, a lifestyle.
Yes. And you know what? I try and encourage people, whatever you're passionate about, definitely follow your dream. And you know what? The money will follow. If you're good at what you're good, or if you're good at what you're doing, hey, people will see the talent, they'll see your skills, and they'll definitely like want to pay for your services. And I see so many people nowadays, even kids I graduated with, that are you really passionate about what you do? Because, for example, I dated someone years ago who went into the medical field.
Yeah.
And I asked them, even in college, hey, are you really happy doing this? Like, I don't know too many people that want to go into genomics and like studying genes and how they work. And their mindset is, oh, well, I'm going to get a very big paycheck. So whether I like it or not, you know, hey, that's what it comes down to, which, hey, I get it. I understand going for the money, but in the long run, are you really going to be happy with doing something that you're not really passionate about? Because most of the time, the people I see, they're not happy.
Yeah.
They become miserable after X amount of time. They get burnt out. But those who actually follow their passions, yes, it might be a little bit more struggles and you got to find like your niche. But once when you get going, you're happy going to work. In fact, it's no longer work anymore. It's something that you love to do. I mean, you're having fun. You're passionate about following your dream. And to me, that's more important.
It's far more important. And, you know, it's one of those things like it's, I think there's like a chart of like sacrifices. What sacrifices are you willing to make and that kind of thing. But like just being able to define what it is that makes you happy. I love getting up every day and doing what I do, you know, like
and likewise,
it's like Monday comes around and it's not like, oh man, you know, like it's like starting it out and being able to like, again, do the thing that fills my cup, that gives me energy. Exactly. It's not work.
It's true. It's true. And you know what? One thing I do tell people, you are going to still have obstacles because there's no perfect job. Let's be honest with ourselves. But it definitely makes things so much easier and so much more enjoyable when you're doing something you love and you're passionate about versus doing something that you hate. It's just like, you know, it's definitely like a job where it's like, I'm just doing this just to live, but like, am I really happy? Can I really do this for the long run? And the answer is no.
No, not without, you know, and you see it all around us. You see the depression, you see, you know, you see all the things that are happening in order to mask people's like just being miserable. They're 9 to 5 or they spend so much time not throughout the week doing something they don't like doing.
Exactly.
And I just, you know, with this and seeing the people I talk to, it's like, it's reality. You can do what you love every single day. Yes. You don't have to hate what you do.
Exactly. And that's why I try to encourage people like, hey, what are you happy about? What are you passionate about? Because you should be following that dream versus, hey, you know, I'm working this 9 to 5 job that I hate. Just like, well, why are you working there? Well, I got to survive. But it might be more difficult to just jump off and start your own business or just like, you know, go into the field that you want to, but it's going to be so more worthwhile doing it than sticking where you're at.
Yeah.
And again, I see so many people that just do that because they want the easy route or per se the easy route. And it's just like, well, I understand you want the easy route, but are you really going to be happy with this in the long run? Like, especially 10, 20, 30 years from now? And the answer I already know is no, you're not.
Absolutely not. Especially if you think about it all the time, if you really do think about these certain ideas, if you really think about your art all the time,
yes.
How do you go and then do financial planning? You know, how do you then go and be an accountant? How do you do these things?
Right.
You know, whatever it is, how do you do these things when you're dreaming about that thing in the background? And that was me. I had this job that I had all the empowerment in the world. Like I enjoyed it. I was really good at it. It had elements to what I do now.
Yes.
Like the coaching, the developing, motivational speaking, but I had this overarching like things that I couldn't control. Like I had to stay under this certain umbrella. Right. And it's like being able to now go out and have this business where I got to take all the best of what I love doing here, but then combine it into a business where I get to do that all the time.
Yes.
Because I hit this wall no matter how, and I had to I didn't know what was wrong with me. Why do I not want to go to work today? Like I have the best boss in the world that lets me do whatever I would need to do to get it done. Right. I have these people that I hired and I mentored and I love them. They're great, but I don't want to get up and go to work. Like what's going on?
Right. Exactly. Well, you know what? I'm glad that you found your passion too.
You know, and I'm on a mission to help as many people as possible find their passion because like yourself, I believe that everybody has a purpose, a passion, and most people are not doing it.
Absolutely. And I'm kind of very similar to you, which is not only do I like hearing your story, but I want to hear like, why are you doing this exactly?
Yeah.
And is there anything I could do to help you out? And one gentleman, actually one of my first customers, I still see him all the time. He's actually in an electro pop group. And I remember when I first met him, just solo musician, didn't have a name, didn't have a brand, didn't have anything, didn't know what to do with himself. And now I see that he's playing in like New York. He's playing all over the United States. He's played in a few countries. And I'm just like, see, like, you know, we talked about just like how we could actually move you forward. And I worked with him for years and years to help him build his brand. And I said, look, you're doing great. Like, don't forget who helped you out with this. But
don't forget me when you're big.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But like, hey, how wonderful. Like, you know, you started off with an idea. You didn't know what to necessarily do with yourself. And we worked together and look where you are now. Like, how wonderful. And you followed your dream. More importantly.
And then you get to look back at that again. It's feeding back into you get to do what you enjoy. And going back to your story, you know, like there's so much negative there.
Yes.
But then you get to empower and bring beauty into the world.
Exactly. And you know what? My philosophy too is you could either dwell on the negative in the past and just let it eat you, or you could try and move forward. And it may be difficult. It may be painful, but you know what? life is beautiful. There's a lot of great things to appreciate. And even though everyone's got these shitty circumstances they have to deal with, and everyone's got their own demons and skeletons in their closet, are you going to really let it just hold you down, or are you going to try and move past it? And I know sometimes it's easier said than done to move past these.
Yeah.
Like, for example, myself, I still have to battle a certain woman who's complicating my life as well as several other people's lives that I know about.
Yeah.
But am I going to let her ruin my parade 24/7? No, I'm just going to keep on going. I'm going to try and keep on dreaming the way that I've been doing things and hope for the best.
You create your own beauty.
Exactly.
It was one of those things, and we have a very, similar story in this sense of I had the villain in my life, and it was my dad. And my dad was a very abusive guy, and I used to say that the only reason I'd go to his funeral is the only reason I'd go to his funeral is just to confirm that he was dead. And he committed suicide at 43, and I went to his funeral just to confirm he was dead, not to mourn him or anything else. And I had this hate, I had this victimhood that I filled myself. I had all these excuses of I'm not doing well because of these things, right? And it's like one day, I don't, it's probably over a course of time, but it's just like this thought of like, this guy's dead, right? I'm spending all this time hating and blaming this one person that, even if he was alive, what does he do with that?
Right.
2, but 3, he's not alive. And so like, he can't feel this. And even if he could feel this, it doesn't change my circumstance. The only thing that changed my circumstance is if I just start living for me and stop living in the past.
That's great. That's great. And you know what? I'm glad that you actually overcame that. Thank you for sharing that with me too. I really appreciate it. And again, I love hearing everyone's story and background of like, what is it that inspired you, or what is it that, prompted you to actually still follow your dreams and make you the person you are today. And we all have our demons. We all have our obstacles. Mine is a woman that loves to terrorize till this day, but you know what? I'm still trying not to allow her to win, as well as, obstruct everything that I've been doing.
She's not winning because you're creating the life that you love to do.
Exactly. And even though it has its challenges, and some days she makes it very difficult, not just for myself, but for several other people as well. You know what? At the end of the day, it's just like, I'm pissed off. I may be mad at them, but I just got to move forward and just fuck them.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Because that's what I said, like, thinking about my dad. Like, even, okay, let's say he had this evil plot in his head that he wanted me to fail.
Yes.
I think as I sat and looked at his circumstances, he was a victim. He was a victim. He was a victim of his dad, and he wasn't fortunate like me that I was able to understand that I don't have to repeat history, that I do have control of my destiny. And then not only that, I'm going to change the whole script. My son's not going to know what abuse is. My son's not even going to, like, he's going to be so far away from that. My family is going to be so completely different. It was a huge motivator for me. It was like, F them, fuck them, right? Like, absolutely. I'm going to go out and build my life, and I'm going to go out and and so and I did that.
Yeah.
On that kind of like in spite of what's going on.
Absolutely. And that's amazing to hear that. And you may have read it too on my social media page, but I also had a difficult childhood.
Yeah.
My parents were rough around the edges. My dad was a boomer, grew up in a different time period where affection wasn't really like a thing, was abusive. I know that my mom, she became her father. So I know that my grandfather, he passed away right before I was born, was definitely abusive to the nth degree. I know my grandmother got divorced in a time period which, like, divorce was very
not
rare.
Common. Yeah.
Yes, and you only got divorced if things were really bad, and it got to that point where it was really bad. And seeing her, I realized her philosophy is you could either be the wolf or the sheep, and she chose to be the wolf. And it's just that it's sad. Like, luckily, I'm here to break the cycle. After what I experienced, I'm never going to have that happen. Like, if I have kids one day, they're not going to experience the same thing I did. And you know what? Your legacy's over.
Yes. Yes. You create a new legacy.
Exactly. A better one.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. More positive.
Because we can't control those other people. We can't control and change that evil person, right? We can't control her intentions.
Exactly.
But we can impact the world around us.
Exactly. And we could either choose to make it a more beautiful place, or we could be stuck in the mud with them and just be negative. But you know what? I'm not going to do option B. I'm definitely going to do option A.
Yeah. It's just so much better that way. 1, 2, you mentioned it, like we talked legacy, but like you talked about, like, no one's going to be at your funeral. But it goes more than that. Like she's alive right now, dying. Like, right. Like she's alive right now and with no joy.
She has no joy whatsoever. But the thing is, being retired and being a narcissist with sociopathic tendencies, she finds joy in hurting other people, including myself. And she loves to inconvenience. And she's actually flat out said it to myself and multiple people, which is, the reason why I do this is the joy I get. Which is, and I'm just like, what a horrible person. Like, how the hell did you become this?
Yeah. But so there are legit evil people out there. There are legit evil people to our story. There are people that don't care.
Yeah,
right?
There are people that don't care.
I think most bad people or people that do bad things do have a conscience, do have a remorse. They're just feeding an emotion, addiction, a fear that, that is making them do bad things. Or an experience. They're not like us where we can like purposely not do these things, right?
Exactly.
But then there are the people out there that are they're out here. They get joy out of bringing misery. That's and so knowing that those people are out there, it's like the good guy, bad guy, the superhero, right?
Right. I mean, when it kind of comes down to it, I mean, if you're doing more of like a black and white like perspective, it's kind of like, good guy versus bad guy versus really bad guy.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, it's a matter of like, when we know those people are out there and they're going to impact people's lives and make it miserable, I feel like my responsibility is to be the light.
Yes.
My responsibility is to bring as much light to people as possible, to help them when I can, to help people share their stories so that other people can hear it and be inspired by it.
Yes. And, that's another reason why I want to tell my story. I know that there's some aspects that I can't quite share just for protection's sake, but at the same time too, I hope to inspire. I know that there are people out there struggling with something very similar to myself. And I hope that, maybe these individuals might hear this story and realize, regardless of the bad obstacles that we face, there is the opportunity to always try and do better and try and may not necessarily like 100% get rid of these obstacles and these struggles, but find a way around it to where I could still live a normal life, still be positive, still be passionate about what I do, and be happy in the long run, most of all, because life is too short. Too short. Yep, and you never know what tomorrow will bring. So it's just, I think to myself as well, do you want to be miserable the rest of your life and just hold on to the past and have to deal with these things? Or do you want to try and do something more with your life? So at least at the very end, you got closure, you're happy, you're doing something that you love versus just being miserable 24/7. Because I mean, I've been in the boat of being miserable 24/7 and it's not fun.
It's not fun.
No, it's not.
I've been in that same boat with you. Yeah. It's not a fun boat and it's got holes all through it, it's sinking quickly.
I was going to say, the boat is sinking very quickly and there's no life vest or anything.
But to your point, life is so short. Just on Saturday, I was at a funeral for a 19-year-old.
Ooh, I'm sorry.
And I didn't know her. I played basketball with her dad. And it's one of those things like I could not imagine, it's, what do you just have to be there for somebody that's going through that because there's nothing I could possibly say.
Exactly.
I don't even want to think about what that would be like.
Right.
So it's but she was 19 years old. She was playing, she was playing college athletics. She was going to college. She had all these life plans. Yes. And so a big motivating factor for me is like, we don't know. We don't know when that's going to end. What are my last things that I do? Like, did I make somebody smile? Did I impact a life? Did I change a life for a good?
Exactly.
Or did I make somebody miserable?
That's true too. And I mean, with that, everyone's going through their own struggles and I try and be kind just because you never know what the person next to you has been through and what they currently deal with. So it's so much, it takes less energy to actually be kind than to actually be a miserable person and actually ruin someone's day. And that's why going back to this one person who still inconveniences my life, you put in so much energy just to be negative and they know that they're being negative, but they don't give a damn.
Yes.
And I think to myself, like, how can you live with yourself? How do you sleep with yourself constantly being in this toxic environment and you want to, make everything you touch turn to shit. I mean, like that takes so much energy. Like, why can't you just be a decent human being? It's not that hard. It's not that complicated. But I realize, due to their mental illness, they could never be the person that I would hope they would be.
Yeah.
They could never be normal. They could never, just have a
compassion or have a remorse for what they do.
Exactly. And even getting into arguments with them the few times I've actually encountered them, I've brought up the same thing, which is just, I know you can't see past your illness, but what you're doing is wrong. I know you don't understand right from wrong. You just care about yourself and just your self-preservation. But at the end of the day, you're going to live a very lonely life. No one's going to come to your funeral, including myself. And it's just very sad that this is the life you chose for yourself and you are just something else.
Well, and even outside of the funeral, you know, what happens when that person gets old and sick? Who's taking care? You know, like there's nobody there.
Yeah.
And that might be where that person really feels that impact of the life.
And I think about that too, just because they're older, I know that their health's not the best. So, you know, when it comes to having someone take care of you, even if you get 8, are they really going to stick around and want to take care of you because you're such a negative person and such a dick? I'm going to be honest. You know, like, are they really going to care? You know, and no one's going to care for this person. I mean, I don't care. Everyone I know that does know them, they don't care. They say the same thing. They're just a horrible person. They are a dick. And that's sad, you know, that this is the life that you chose for yourself.
Yep. Yeah. It's one of those things you can't save everybody though. And it's like one of the, you have to realize when you can't and move on and create your own life.
Exactly.
So speaking of impact, another thing you shared in that post was how you saved a young man's life.
Yes. So this is back in college. So I used to work actually at an athletic club. I was actually a swim instructor for a number of years. So I was actually teaching some kids how to swim, and I had one of my buddies next to me. He was facing the opposite way. So his head was actually facing like behind me, and I was actually like facing just like forward with his back, like more like towards mine. And all of a sudden I hear, oh, fuck. And I turned around and some random toddler just literally jumped in like the 9-foot end and was completely lifeless, white at the bottom of the pool. I panicked. We all panicked. I mean, I remember I just screamed, oh, fuck.
Yeah.
And I just swam as fast as I could and dove under and grabbed that kid as quickly as possible. The kid was pure white, just throwing up water constantly. I thought for sure, oh my gosh, the worst thing's going to happen. And actually, the kid turned out fine. He was fine. He actually walked away from the situation, but completely lifeless, all white. I mean, even when I pulled him out, completely dead weight. I'm just like, oh my gosh, what happened? And then I was asking my buddy, I'm just like, where did this kid come from? Like, he's not part of our group. Like, where's his parents? Which the parents weren't even around. Yeah, which is more amazing. And I'm just like, what happened? Like, literally what just happened in like a split second? This kid just all of a sudden jumped in, fell to the very bottom. And I'm so glad we were there. And I'm so glad that I got to save a life that day. But at the same time, too, just like, what happened?
No, you don't know what happened to this day?
To this day. And I think one of my managers talked to his family about the whole circumstances. I mean, I haven't seen him in years, but to this day, I'm just so perplexed. Like, why weren't you around to take care of your kid? Like, you were nowhere near the pool. You were nowhere in the facility that I'm aware of. Did you just like leave your kid with someone and did that person walk away? I mean, I still don't understand, but all I know is there's a kid lifeless at the bottom of this pool. And in that split reaction, it's just like, okay, I need to swim as quickly as possible to try and save this kid and hoping, fingers crossed, that nothing happened to him.
Yeah. Was that local here? Or?
So more towards the Franklin area.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I was working out there at the time.
Okay. So interesting. Yeah. That's so crazy.
Yeah. It was wild, man. And I will say, what adrenaline rush in that split second when I turned around and just, oh, fuck.
Oh my God. No kidding.
Yeah.
And then like pulling him out of the whole thing. I could imagine that whole adrenaline afterwards.
Yes. And just like completely lifeless. And then eventually just started throwing up water just continuously. I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, please don't die. Please don't die. Please don't die. And then again, where did this kid come from? Who is this kid?
It's insane.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Wild thing.
Yeah. No, it's again, I was going through this. I'm like, oh my God, I've got to have you on the show. And we had just met each other briefly at the networking event. It was just around the corner here at Stout.
Stout, the co-work networking event.
Yeah. Do you go to many of those events?
I try to as many as I can, but sometimes, depending on work and projects, it gets a little bit more complicated. I mean, timing wise, but whenever they do have them, I love to go out. I love to network. Again, I love to like meet people and hear your story. Everyone's got a story. I'm very interested in what is it that made you, as well as what is that creative spark that inspired you to actually become, the person that you are today and go into the professional field that you're in. We
have so much in common. I could sit and talk to people all day about that thing and that driver.
Likewise.
I was talking about it before we started recording in high school, I knew I wanted to either be a psychologist because I wanted to help other messed up people like myself that had these barriers and, childhood problems and stuff like that. Yes. Or I wanted to be a sports journalist and I became a salesperson instead. But then you fast forward and it's outside of the box. Look at us right now.
Yeah.
You look at the journalism piece, we're in the studio, and I've really enveloped that piece in my content writing and my, so like that passion, that purpose that I have always had, that skill that I've always had is now I've went down a different, outside of the box, creative, different medium that I'm in. My work that I do is mostly psychology. It's mostly helping people overcome barriers and limiting beliefs and adjusting their perspective.
Yes. Well, I will say, hey, I know things like changed a little bit, but what you're doing here is amazing. I will say your facility is incredible. Keep up the great work. And I've been watching your other podcasts. Like, you do wonderful work, and I'm the same as you, which is I love just to hear people's story. I love to hear their background, because it's certain events that really make us who we are. And like, what were those circumstances? Then more importantly, what do you love is what I want to hear. Because if, for example, if you want me to help you out, I need to feel the same passion, which is like, I could see that you're like in love with this. So, okay, I'm going to be in love with this too. So I could try and help you like to better like build your brand, elevate your company, and move forward.
Yeah. It's like tapping into that passion and that love to really, who are they?
Exactly. So I love it.
That's so cool. That's what I do a lot from the sales end. And again, who are you? Why should they care? How do you solve people's problems? It's like really diving that in, but who are you as an individual person, and why does that matter?
Exactly. And again, everyone's got their own unique story. I mean, everyone's got their demons too, but it's all these circumstances that shape you into who you are. And again, I love just to hear like, okay, what is it that really drives you to be passionate about the field you're in, the career that you're in? And again, life is so short. So like, are you doing something that really like makes you happy, or are you doing something for a paycheck? Because like, hey, I totally get it. At the end of the day, we all want a paycheck, but are you going to be happy with what you're doing? And then more importantly too, just because I coach people just like with some personal like aspects of their life, hey, is there something like interrupting, like, like your workflow, or interrupting just like your mindset of trying to actually get these like projects done, or trying to like follow the field that you want to go into? And again, I know we all have our obstacles, our struggles, and our demons, but like, how can I help you to like try and overcome them? And, I don't expect us to 100% get rid of them, but realistically, like, we could probably do things better. And like, what are those things that we could do better?
And what would the impact of that be?
I mean, it's a pretty incredible impact. And I mean, I've met people that, just starting off a brand, they didn't have an identity whatsoever. They didn't know what to do with themselves. They never really stopped to think about, what do I want to do for the long run? Like, I went to college, I went to a field that I was kind of interested in, but now that I got out, it's just like, do I really want to do this? And then it's just more like sitting down with them, hearing their story. And then sometimes it's just like, I know you went to college and you went to this degree, but it sounds like you hate this. Yeah, it sounds like this is not for you. And, something I tell people too, a degree doesn't necessarily define like, who you are and what you want to be. So I know this one gentleman in particular who is in this electropop group. He was talking about, it's just like, oh, I went to chemistry. I studied chemistry for like a number of years. I graduated, and then I realized I hate chemistry. Like, why the hell do I want to go into this? And it's just like, well, what do you like to do? It's just like, well, I love playing the violin. I love doing electropop. I said, why don't you do that? Yep. And sure enough, here he is now.
And now he's out all over. That's so cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah. I had a client that he has a recruiting consulting business now, and he loves it. But he went to law school, became a lawyer, and he was like, I spent all that time, passed the bar, got into my career, and realized I hate being a trial lawyer. Like, I hate it. I wish I would have tested for this way long ago and realized that I hated it before I spent all that money doing it.
Absolutely. And you know what? I have a customer that's very similar. I was doing photography at this gig, at this event, and I'm talking to this gentleman that I've met a few times. And I mean, he's working at a wedding. He's got like a little photo booth. And I'm talking to him, and somehow we bring up law. And I mean, with my MBA, I had to learn like some Michigan law and whatnot. But I'm talking to him, and he seems to know extensive amounts of the law. And I stop, and I'm just like, hey, like, it almost seems like you were a lawyer at one time. And he stopped. He says, actually, I was a criminal defense lawyer for a number of years. I said, no offense, but what are you doing working a photo booth? Shouldn't you be like doing something with your career? And as they explained to me, you know what? My family told me I had to be a lawyer. So I did it. I passed the bar exam. Got into it, realized what the hell am I doing? And like, I'm actually defending people that some of them are ugly people that just, they're going to do the crime again. I'm going to see them in
He's like, they should get prosecuted.
Yes, exactly. He goes, I can't come out and say that, but now I have to defend them. And then,
the lawyer sides with them. Are you sure?
Yes, exactly. So after a while he got burned out, and he's just like, I just can't do this. Like, just wanted to follow just what my parents told me to do and like, make a really nice paycheck. But then at the end of the day, I wasn't happy. I didn't see my family. I didn't see, well, he has 2 girls and he was telling me I didn't see them really grow up for like a number of years. And it really hit me one day, like, what am I doing? Like, even though I did this, like to please my family, is it worth it? And the answer is no. So he found a passion in just doing photo booths and working events.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
So again, I think that most people do, they find their careers because their parents told them something or because they were trying, they had to figure it out.
Exactly.
It's so hard at 18 to figure out what you're going to do for the rest of your life.
Right.
I'm a completely different person than I was at 18 years old. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
I think I am. I guess I kind of landed in what just, to tie back in, but, my thoughts, my maturity, I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Right.
And that's really hard. Then you go and pay for school. I had Rob, the owner of the studio here on yesterday, and he was talking about like, he went through all this schooling and made all this money and realized that's not what he wanted to do. And so many people do that.
Absolutely. I know another gentleman, he's the same age as me, went through law school, got done with law school. The minute he got out and actually started his field, he said, fuck this, I want to be a photographer.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, well, why did you go through law school? He's like, well, my dad told me I should do this, so I believed him. And then I didn't know what I was getting myself into, got into the field and realized, what the hell am I doing?
What's really cool now is you can, like, there's no box anymore.
Exactly.
And there's a lot of baby boomers. There's a lot of people that still feel like you got to go to college, get a good job, like do these things. And not saying don't go to college and that kind of stuff, but what do you want to do? Do you need to go to college for that? And kind of figure it out. College, I think, is a great experience for certain things. But there's so many things you can do now.
Absolutely. And you know what? I mean, having my parents boomers, I was given that whole lecture, like, oh no, you have to go to college. You have to try and do certain things in order to be successful, or quote unquote, their version of successful in life. But nowadays, and I mean, just having the experience that I do now and just the knowledge, college is not for everyone. And you know what? Education, I do think it's important to try and like push yourself to have an education. And I mean, if you want to push to have like a master's degree or like a doctorate degree, hey, more power to you. If that's what you want to do and that's your goal, I say go for it. And, if you need my help, how can I help you through it?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I feel like a lot of careers, it doesn't have to be that cookie cutter. And to me, life is like art. There's always exceptions to the rules. I don't think that there has to be like a certain mold that one has to fit, especially nowadays. I mean, there's so many fields you go into that you don't necessarily have to go to college, and that's okay. Now, if you want to push yourself for like a better education, like I said, hey, I think that's great. I think that's a good goal to have. But if that's something that you don't want to do and you just want to follow your passion doing something else, hey, that's respectable.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no box. We can do whatever. We can go out and create.
Exactly.
What we want to do.
Exactly. And I recommend that to everyone. Create what you want to do. Just don't follow the mold that our boomer parents told us to do, which is just like, hey, you're going to be a lawyer or doctor and that's it. I mean, I'm just using those as examples because it's just, again, yeah, you might be making a nice paycheck. Are you going to be happy? And is that really what you want to do? Like when you were a kid, like, didn't you want to do something else? Or like even throughout college, like, wasn't there something that inspired you more than just like, oh, like, yeah, I just want to be like a nurse, which nothing against nurses. I highly respect nurses, but I have a lot of nurse friends and doctor friends that stop one day and realize, what the hell am I doing?
Yes. They were a nurse because their mom or dad was a nurse or just saying like the good route. They like taking care of people and that kind of thing.
Exactly.
I almost got into nursing before I got into sales. I was working at a nursing home. I was there for a couple of years. It's one of those things trying to figure out what do I do with my life.
Exactly. Well, I'm glad that you found your passion, and I will say your facility is amazing. And the fact that, I mean, you went through all these different things just to build up what you have right now. I mean, this is incredible, and you should be very proud. Yeah, this is not
mine, but I'll take credit for it. But no.
Well, you're a part of the equation. So.
Yeah. No, this is phenomenal. This is one of those things again, like as you build what you want to do. I started out having these conversations and I had a lot of guilt because my wife was going every day to a job that she hated. And I'm having conversations with people and I'm having the time of my life and I'm not making any money doing it. Like these people aren't paying me to have conversations with them over coffee. I'm not, and I'm like, I couldn't answer the question honestly. Am I going to make money out of this? I don't know. I really didn't know. I didn't know what was going to happen out of it. And that was far before the podcast or anything else.
Yes.
However, people are our greatest resource. You know,
yes.
and there are so many people out there that are amazing. We spend a lot of this time talking about that ugly, and there are a lot of ugly people out there, but there are a lot of lights out there. There are a lot of incredible people. And so I spend my time, and my filter and my magnet is on to find those people like yourself. And that's why I have the difference makers on this show.
Yes.
Because I want those people, again, thrust into the light. More people, this being your first podcast, like more people need to hear your story. There's a book in there. There's, you know, because if we've been through these experiences, you know, there's somebody out there listening right now that's going through a similar experience, like that doesn't have the resolve that you have, that then went out and created the life that they to enjoy. They're maybe stuck in that.
Absolutely.
You know?
Well, that's why I'm hoping to inspire someone with this story. I know that I'm not the only one who's probably had to deal with these very similar obstacles. And hey, if they're listening to this, I hope that they understand that, you know what, if I could actually get through these obstacles and try and actually build the career and passion that I always wanted, so can you. It might take some trial and error to figure out what that balance is. And it's not a perfect system, but we could find a way to actually do things better. And we could find a way for you to continue to like live the life that you want, that's empowering to you, versus, I mean, the life that you may have right now, which may be not necessarily the best.
Absolutely. JJ, man, that was a perfect way to wrap it up. I really appreciate you coming down, making time, and sharing your story with us.
Absolutely. And thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot.
Yep, thank you.